every single offseason, a huge chunk of the league finds itself caught in some kind of QB drama.
Anyone who's ever been in my situation can agree that it sucks. I haven't been a backup in a while, so I don't plan on shifting my mindset at all, regardless of what the situation is.
So how about we take a look around the NFL landscape at the biggest budding controversies under center heading into the 2025 season. New Orleans Saints, Tyler Shuck versus Spencer Rattler. There are quarterback battles, and then there is whatever the New Orleans Saints have going on with Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler as they try to piece together some sort of competence under center. This isn't your typical veteran versus rookie dynamic. It's not a transitional bridge scenario or a clear tank given their salary cap situation and draft assets. What the Saints have is a full-blown quarterback carnival that could go any which way. So let's start with the presumed leader, Tyler Shuck. He was drafted in the second round in 2025 and, to his credit, in many ways was the prototype passer. 6'5", cannon arm, and the traditional pocket build. That said, he does have just enough mobility to avoid being labeled a statue. But his college career was patchy at best, bouncing between programs and battling injuries. Not to mention, he is quite long in the tooth for a rookie, as he'll turn 26 at the beginning of the season. There's reason to believe that he could be QB1 in the right system, but the floor is Brandon Whedon-esque, and he could end up just being another guy you randomly remember from the preseason in 3 years. And then we got Spencer Rattler. Once billed as the next superstar up before losing his job in college, Rattler has spent the last couple of years rebuilding his brand, one throw at a time. But having seen him start actual NFL games over the past couple of years, I don't know, there is reason to be very skeptical. The only certain thing at this point is that someone in this quarterback room is going to get a shot to take the wheel. But who is anyone's guess. Las Vegas Raiders, Geno Smith versus Aiden O'Connell. There's something fairly poetic about Geno Smith's NFL journey. Written off in New York, resurrected in the Pacific Northwest, and now reinserted into the spotlight. This time in Las Vegas with Pete Carroll, the very man who saved his career, whose endorsement is echoing across the desert. In a shocking turn of events, the Raiders appear to be looking at Geno Smith as the steady hand that can stabilize the franchise while they try to right the ship. It's a nice idea to think that he could be the guy who won't get rattled, but well, he's also 34. Coming off a streaky campaign in Seattle and entering a new locker room with a roster that's still really figuring out what it wants to be. On the other side of the ring is Aiden O'Connell, the Purdue product who has quietly earned the respect of the organization over the last couple of years with his poise, despite spending most of his time as the Raiders quarterback under immense pressure. Oh sure, he's not flashy, no highlight reel athleticism, no cannon arm, but he's methodical and smarter than he gets credit for. And while no one is expecting him to win the job outright in July, his ceiling may be closer to functional long-term starter than people think. Expect this one to be a battle, regardless of whether the media is talking about it now or not. The gap between Geno and Aiden O'Connell isn't as big as you or Pete Carroll might think at the moment. And this will certainly be one to keep an eye on all season long, because the AFC West is a division that demands high-powered offenses to keep up in shootouts just to stay relevant. The leash on whoever wins the job is gonna be short. Cleveland Browns, Joe Flacco versus Kenny Pickett. With Deshaun Watson out with that torn Achilles, Cleveland is finally able to turn the page on that horrific acquisition, albeit just about as ungracefully as it all started. Oh well, in any case, there's now quite a quarterback controversy that has sparked up in Ohio, where Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett are going to be duking it out for the high honor of being the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. And of course, the next name added to that infamous jersey. Only in Cleveland could a quarterback room headlined by two backups become one of the most quietly compelling stories of the offseason.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
Flacco, to his credit, has managed to stay NFL relevant somehow, still slinging it with just enough juice to flirt with starting viability. Now in his 40s, Flacco is frankly more meme than miracle though. But Browns fans know that they have a guy who wasn't afraid to take shots, understands situational football with the best of them, and who, most importantly, stabilized a team that was otherwise spiraling. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have Pickett, the former first-rounder who flamed out in Pittsburgh and now gets a second lease on life across state lines. The Pickett experiment was supposed to be the answer for the Steelers, and while it wasn't, perhaps Kevin Stefanski will be able to make some magic with him. And while the Browns didn't trade for him expecting fireworks or anything, they might end up getting one last spark if Pickett embraces the desperation of the moment. Flacco versus Pickett isn't going to lead first take. But in the rough and tumble AFC North, this might end up being one of the most consequential low-wattage quarterback competitions of the entire year. Indianapolis Colts, Anthony Richardson versus Daniel Jones. 3 seasons ago, Anthony Richardson was the raw but electric can't-miss upside pick that the Colts bet their future on. Now he enters year 3 not as the savior, but as a quarterback still being auditioned. Again. His collection of injuries, continued inconsistency, and far too infrequent flashes have not quite come together into the sustained brilliance the Colts were hoping would define his early NFL tenure. But still, the physical tools are impressive. Heading into the pivotal 3rd season of his career, Richardson will now have to win a quarterback battle if he wants to get back on track. Enter Daniel Jones. The former Giants starter was a walking paradox in New York. Occasionally competent, occasionally explosive, and occasionally a disaster. He's been brought in to push Richardson, or possibly replace him. The Colts signed Jones not to be a savior, but a catalyst. If he wins the job outright, it could very well say more about Richardson than it does about Jones. A potentially painful message, but one that the Colts will need to hear eventually. Richardson doesn't have to be an MVP candidate out the gate, but he has to own the huddle, the job, and the offense. Otherwise, the Colts are gonna start looking again. Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward versus Will Levis. Since he got to Tennessee, Will Levis has showed some flashes, but, well, not quite enough. At least not enough to keep the front office from taking Cam Ward number 1 overall this year. Ward has essentially been dubbed the quarterback of the future, meaning Levis's days in town are now numbered. But the future is not now, and there are still major question marks if Ward will be the starter heading into week 1. To Levis's credit, he has handled the challenging situation with grace and professionalism, at least thus far. But that doesn't mean he's going to bow out of this fight. Because, while he likely can't save his future with the Titans, he can earn the right to start the season and put out some tape that could entice other NFL teams that think he was just another victim of the quarterback wood chipper that is the Titans organization. New York Giants, Russell Wilson versus Jameis Winston versus Jackson Dart. In the Big Apple, the Giants have decided to turn their quarterback room into, well, a bit of a grab bag, making 2 high-profile free agent acquisitions with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, and then taking a quarterback at the end of the first round in Jackson Dart. Russell Wilson arrived with the body language of a man who knows that he could be on his final NFL contract. His fall in Denver was sharp and often painful to watch, but with how he played in stretches during his time in Pittsburgh, there is still a belief that he can win. You just kinda gotta squint hard enough. Winston, on the other hand, is in many ways an enigma. Brilliant throws followed by baffling decisions, but in the right system, with the right coaching, maybe something finally clicks and he can find some decision-making to go along with all that creativity and explosive playmaking. And then there's Jackson Dart, a rookie with moxie, mobility, and a strong arm. Heading into the season, Dart is not expected to start week 1. However, with Winston's volatility and Wilson's, well, recent nosedive inconsistency, there's a very real chance that he is in the conversation. If not during camp, at least some point this year. Coach Brian Daboll has said that all 3 will get reps, which, let's be honest, that's coach speak for we have no idea what this looks like yet. Either way, this should be a very intriguing one to follow along with for fans across the league. Cleveland Browns, Dillon Gabriel versus Shedeur Sanders. Cleveland is a very rare case where a team actually has 2 controversies, both for the starting gig and 2 rookies. High-profile ones at that, duking it out for 3rd-string duties and a regular roster spot. Because, you know, as if one quarterback duel wasn't enough, the Browns decided to run it back with a second. A kind of developmental showdown that could prove to be either genius or just maybe more noise in the machine. Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders arrive in Cleveland from interestingly different backgrounds. Gabriel, the Oklahoma standout with a quick release and known for his accuracy. He enters the league with a very high floor and a body of work that screams competent backup, with just enough upside to trick yourself into being excited. Sanders, on the other hand, well, he carries the weight of both promise, pressure, and the fear of a massive bust. The kid's talented, there's There's no question about that. And he certainly flashed big-time traits at Colorado, but he's also a lightning rod, partly due to pedigree and partly due to persona. Both rookies are effectively battling for QB3 status and a roster spot, meaning that it is more high stakes for the two individuals than the team or really any of the fans. But still, given Sanders' notoriety, it is certainly going to be a storyline to follow. And for Cleveland, it's a smart hedge. The room may be crowded, but if the Browns have learned anything over the past decade, it's that you can never have too many quarterbacks, especially when none of them are a guarantee. But hey, which of these NFL quarterback controversies are you most excited to see play out? Was there anyone that we may have missed? Who do you think's gonna come out on top? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, then hey, clicking that like button helps us out a ton. And you know, we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, then subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.